your microphones and turn off your cameras. We are now on Facebook Live. So hello, everyone. This is Carlin from Immigrant Services Calgary, and we are going to be starting today's workshop. Before we get started, I would like to firstly of all go through a few administrative details. And this program owes a debt to IRCC. We humbly thank IRCC for their funding and continued support. So thank you for that. And a few reminders before we start. Please turn off your microphones. Please turn off your camera. No abusive language will be tolerated. Do not put any personal information into the chat box, as this is very important. And please save any questions for the end of the workshop. Our guest speaker today, Kate, has graciously agreed to offer us a Q&A, so please do type your questions in the chat box. At the end of the workshop, an evaluation link will be provided to you, so please do answer the evaluation and the survey so that we can continue to give you better quality workshops. Thank you, everyone. And as I said again, welcome to everyone who has chosen to join us today. My name is Carlin, and I am the Newcomer Employment Specialist at Immigrant Services Calgary. And I'm very excited to be part of this workshop. We are going to be talking about, interviews today. And I know that interviews can sometimes be a bit intimidating. So we're going to be learning from Kate Power. She works in talent acquisition and is here to help us to become more comfortable during the interview. Also at this point in time, I'd like to issue a special welcome to our Facebook audience who's joining us live and can also join us through recording. So everyone, please give your attention to Kate. Kate, the floor is yours.
Kate, you're on mute.
Yes, sorry about that. I am still getting my settings in order here. One moment. Thank you for the intro. Okay. Perfect. So everyone can hear me now and hopefully see my screen. I'm going to take silence as a yes. So we're going to talk about how to ace your job interview. My name is Kate, and I've been a volunteer career coach with Immigrant Services Calgary for a few years now, since 2017. I currently work as a recruitment coordinator at a small tech company called Robots and Pencils. Previously, I was at SAIT, University of Calgary, and Marriott. So I've helped lots of people with their resumes, with their interview skills, and I'm very happy to be here today. So I'm going to start with a story about my first hire. So this was a few years back now, before I was in HR, before I had any idea that I wanted to do recruitment. I was working at a very small hotel in Australia. And my manager asked me to hire someone like me, he said, for the front desk. And he gave me a few other kind of guidelines that were all a little questionable. And he made me use a website to advertise a job that was not meant for job ads. So I couldn't even put our hotel's contact details on there. So from the start, I was kind of not set up well, but we managed to get a few applicants and got in for an interview. But it was such a small hotel that I was the only person on the front desk, the only person working on any shift. And of course, they weren't going to spring for anyone extra just because we had interviews. So basically, I was conducting the interviews. I Googled the questions online. I just looked up interview questions. I really had no clue at this point. And halfway through, if a guest came up to check in or they needed some help, I had to go help them in the middle of my interview. So I think for a couple, I had my interviewee just kind of tag along with me while I fixed someone's air conditioner. I had papers all over the desk. It was a pretty chaotic environment. And I finally hired someone. I thought I found someone good who was like me. She ended up sleeping on the job. and quitting, I think, a month later. So basically, I'm much better at interviewing now, I promise you. But this is all just to show you that your interviewers are human. So probably whoever is interviewing you will have a little bit more experience than I did then, but you never know. Maybe they won't. So just kind of remember when you're getting nervous, getting worked up about it, your interviewers are human as well. They might be seasoned professionals of 20 years. They might have no idea what they're doing. We're all human, so you're all on the same level. So some things we're going to talk about today, we will cover kind of a wide range of topics just because I know the audience is kind of diverse here. So some of you, maybe you've done quite a few interviews and you know a little bit what you're doing and you're looking to finesse. Some of you, maybe you've never had an interview in Canada or at all. So we will cover phone screens and different types of interviews, different types of questions. Then we'll look at preparing for the actual interview and what happens in the interview. So there might be some periods where I go pretty quickly, but this is being recorded, so you can always go back and stop it and listen again. So don't worry if I'm going too fast. I'll try to keep speaking clearly, but you can always go back and take a look as well. And then we will have questions at the end. Okay, so first things first, you send out your resume, you write your cover letters, you fill out all the applications. You finally get that phone call that you got the interview. So what do you do? First thing, very important, is get excited, right? This is huge. So it doesn't matter what the job is, it doesn't matter anything, just this is an accomplishment by itself. Getting a job interview is so exciting. So just take a moment to celebrate before you get into the next stuff, right? It's so exciting. Congratulations. Okay. So first type of interview that's the most common here in Canada and some other countries is the phone interview or the screening interview. So this is most often the very first step before you have an in-person or full long interview. So what is a phone interview? It's usually shorter, so maybe 20 to 30 minutes. They'll usually ask about your experience, kind of general qualifications. They will very likely ask your salary expectations. So if one asks you to have a phone screening interview, prepare to have an idea for salary expectations. They likely ask. And be aware of your tone. Be enthusiastic. Again, it doesn't matter what the job is. It doesn't matter. Maybe you decide later it's not the right job for you. In the moment, always give full enthusiasm. You just never know. So this can be your next step to get to the full interview, right? And you want to make it count. Some tips for the phone interview. So if someone calls you and asks you to talk right now, if you're free, go ahead. If you feel comfortable, go ahead. But it's perfectly okay to ask them to reschedule to a later time. We understand that you have a life. You might be working your other job. You might be taking care of the kids. You might be at the gym. It's perfectly fine to ask them to reschedule. You know, would it be okay if you call me back in an hour? Or can we reschedule for tomorrow morning? That's fine. It's great, in fact, because it gives you time to prepare, which you'll hear me say this a lot during this presentation. Preparation is so important. So you can make a little cheat sheet, whatever notes you need. You want to focus on your language, be expressive in your voice. You can prepare some documentation if you want to have your resume in front of you. The job posting would be really, really good to have. You want to be in a quiet, comfortable place, right? You don't want to be out shopping while you're having your phone screen. Perfect place, somewhere at home, somewhere quiet. If home is not quiet, behind a coffee shop or somewhere that would be easy for them to hear you and for you to hear them. And at the end, ask for next steps and contact information. These are always good questions to ask because then you know what the time frame is. So maybe they're going to set up another interview right away. Maybe they say they're going to make a decision next week. It's good information to have. It helps you kind of know if you're in running still and you get an idea of timeline. So those are phone screens. Here are some common questions. I won't dwell on them too much. You can also look online. There are a lot of examples. These are some idea. This is an idea of what to expect. So next, the big one, the big main interview or interviews. So most of the time there's a phone screen and one big interview, but some companies do have a bit of a longer process. It might be 2 interviews, it might be 3. It depends on the job, it depends on the company, and a few other factors. So again, it's perfectly fine to ask them what their process is, just to give you an idea. Remember, first of all, this is also a two-way process. So you're trying to impress them, sure, but they also want to impress you, and you want to see if this company, this job is a fit for you. So it goes both ways, and don't forget that. Different types of interviews. Group interviews, one-on-one interviews are, I would say, getting to be less common. So group interviews, they're more so used for very specific jobs, maybe in the service industry. So it's basically having the candidates all together in a group and interacting with each other and maybe answering questions kind of together as a group. They might have activities or things like that. Like a summer camp leader, which is such a high energy social job, they might do something like a group interview. Normal. Just remind everyone to
Please
mute
stay
your
on
microphone.
mute. Please stay on mute. Please do not unmute your microphones.
Thanks, Meenakshi. So one-on-one interviews, just as it sounds, you are one person, there's one person interviewing you. Common enough, and maybe for smaller companies especially, but more and more these days, you'll find 2+ interviewers. Just because it helps companies get different perspectives, it helps to eliminate bias, which is really critical. And so a lot of the time you'll have 2 or 3 people interviewing you. And once again, it's perfectly okay to ask them in advance, who will be interviewing me? And that way you can know how many people it is. Maybe you can look them up on LinkedIn if you choose. So we're hopefully wrapping up a global pandemic. Oh, we're still in the middle of a global pandemic. So of course, virtual interviews have absolutely exploded. You'll find a lot more these days. And even when the pandemic is over, I'm assuming you're all in Calgary, we have our restrictions lifted now. You might still find a lot of virtual interviews. So it's good to be aware of. You can ask them, is this going to be in person or virtual? That's important to know. And make sure you're familiar with the software they're going to use. So Zoom, Microsoft Teams, Skype, those are all some pretty common ones. And there are a little bit different ways to prepare depending on which type of interview you're in. So some interview questions, just put a couple examples of a few different kinds here. Again, won't spend too much time because you can look online and find hundreds and hundreds of questions. I will say when you're searching possible questions online, maybe tailor it to the job that you're interviewing for. Different jobs will ask you different questions. all of the jobs will ask you something like, tell us about yourself. So some version of this question is pretty much always asked. So make sure to prepare this question. We'll talk a little bit more about it in a few slides. So these are a couple of examples of general questions. Then you have some technical questions depending on the job. So what kind of software are you familiar with? Have you worked with Outlook? And that depends on the position. Difficult or stress questions, not as common. Maybe if it's going to be a high stress job, high pressure job, like a salesperson, you might find questions like, sell me that paperclip. So they're trying to put pressure on you and put you on the spot. Some more difficult questions are maybe around conflict. So what kind of people struggle to work with you? Tell me about a time you had a conflict with someone. These take, again, a little bit more preparation, but we'll talk about that shortly. The main type of question that we're going to focus on today are behavioral or situational questions. And these have really become quite popular, especially with the bigger companies, because they have a little bit more structure. So they structure their interviews more. So these are a very specific type of question. They want concrete examples of how you handled situations in the past. So they want to hear your stories. They want to hear specific examples. It's basically your resume in action, because I can read someone's resume and say, oh, they look perfect for this job. But it's very easy to write things on a resume and not actually be able to do them in real life. So these kind of behavioral questions give us an idea of how you put to practice what is on your resume. And again, we'll talk about practicing shortly. These are a couple examples. So they usually start with describe a time or give me an example of a time, tell me about a time. Again, they're looking for specific examples. The answers, how do we answer these? Use the STAR format. And some of you might have heard of this, some of you might not have. So STAR, the ST, the situation, and the task. So first, you want to set up your story by explaining what's happening. So for example, in my last position, we had a very important project that was running behind schedule. Keep it simple. So you want to just describe the context and just don't get caught up in those details. It's very easy to do. Then you want to talk about your action. What did you do to solve the problem? So, the project was running behind. I got the team together to figure out where the problem was, and turned out it was with the client. So I booked a meeting with them to talk it out. So the actions, I booked a couple of meetings, I talked to people. The result is the most important part for these questions. Most important part, and it's the easiest one to forget, believe it or not. It seems obvious now, maybe, but so often people tell a story and they'll just explain what happened in the situation, but you need to know the ending. And it had better be a fairy tale ending. So happy endings or very close. So for example, my project story, I talked to the client, they were waiting on a very important approval on their end. So I explained we could move our timeline or we could go ahead without the approval. And in the end result, they decided we would move our timeline back by a month. And they thanked us for bringing up a problem. So everybody's happy, problem is solved. That is the end result. And again, there are a lot of examples online. A lot. Okay, so those are some questions employers will ask and can ask. There are some that they really shouldn't. So it's important to know what you should not answer, what you do not have to answer. So know your rights. It's unacceptable for employers to ask about race, age, sexual orientation, marital status, if you have kids, your religion, politics, a lot more. There's quite a list, so I really recommend that everyone check out the link that I've got up here. The Ellis website has a really good breakdown, and there are a lot of other good resources online, but basically you don't need to answer questions about these topics, and they really should not be asking. So some things you can say, I know it's uncomfortable to not answer a question. You can say a question back, you know, how did this relate to the job? Or do you rephrase that? Maybe they just weren't clear in their question. But if they were clear, you could just say, I'm not comfortable disclosing that information. I'm not comfortable answering that. Okay, and it's important because these are your rights, basically. Okay, so that's a little bit about what to expect in the interviews. So now, how do we actually prepare for the interviews? And again, you'll hear me say this a lot. Preparation is so key. So even if you are amazing at interviews, even if you're really good at under pressure or thinking on your feet, you still want to prepare. You still need to prepare. It will set you up for even more success. You want to blow them away, right? You want to do everything you can. So how do we do that? These are the easy options. You can check out company's website. In fact, definitely check out their website. This is even before the phone screen. So if they set up a phone screen with you, you want to look at their website. Check out media stories. There'll be some interesting stories about them in the news. And look at their social media. Just see what company's up to. Maybe jot down something interesting, a new project that they've unveiled, and just have that, because they likely will ask you, what do you know about the company? Second one, use LinkedIn. So I mentioned earlier, if you know who is interviewing you, you can look them up on LinkedIn and just have a little bit more information, know who's going to be there interviewing you. Don't stalk them. Don't add them as a connection. Don't go on their page 20 times a day because they can see that trend. But just go once and have a quick browse just to see who will be there with you. And another way to use LinkedIn, which is really, really important, is see if you have any connections at that company. So even if it's someone you don't know well, or they work in a different department at the company, it can't hurt to just send a quick little message like, hey, I've got an interview at your company. Any tips? Or do you know this hiring manager? You never know. They might not be able to help you, but if they can, they might be able to give you some really valuable information, or they might even be able to put in a good word for you, which is so helpful, especially in Calgary. It's a very big networking city. So the third piece here is know role and responsibilities. So we're often, when we're looking for a job, you might be sending out resumes kind of every direction to all types of jobs. Make sure you keep track somehow, especially if you're going in an interview. Make sure you know which job this is. And even when you apply, I always tell people, take a screenshot of the job description and save it somewhere. Because if you applied 3 weeks ago and you're getting a call today and you applied to 50 other jobs, you're not going to remember the details, and the interviewers can tell. So keep track and know what the role is that you're interviewing for. So when you know the role, you know what stories that you need to tell a little bit more. So your stories, again, they're going to be your answers to the behavioral interview questions. And it may sound easy enough, and you might think, oh, I'm really good at telling stories, and it's my work experience. I know it well enough. I don't need to practice or write anything down. Maybe you don't, but it definitely can't hurt to do it. I know I am terrible under pressure. So I come into an interview with a notebook with a list of different stories I can tell, just bullet points, notes. I write down some info about the company. I'll have my resume in front of me. I honestly will forget my own job history when I'm in a pressure situation. So it's always good to make a list. So sit down and just think of your past jobs and think of specific examples that had a fairy tale ending. And just write some notes, or maybe have a Word document. Don't forget to include some not so good stories, but make them learning opportunities. So we all know that in a job, things don't always end perfectly. That's okay, as long as you learned something from it. And you can show that next time, maybe you'll do things differently, or just that you learned something. I actually really strongly suggest, even before you get an interview, it's good to do this exercise. It helps with your resume as well. Just sit down and think hard on your past jobs, your accomplishments, and really good situations that make you look good, basically. And you want to practice loud, not just in your head. So you can do mock interviews, you do a recorded mock interview, even talk to yourself. So get anyone you can to help you, friend, brother, mother, father, anyone, or someone at Immigrant Services Calgary. We do mock interviews as well. But if you can't find anyone or it's short notice, just everyone's phone can record them. Record yourself on your phone and just practice telling your stories out loud, because this will actually cement it in your brain and make it much easier to do the more you do it. So the more you tell the same story, the better you get at. And even just doing this for 10 minutes, 20 minutes can give you a confidence boost. It can sharpen your stories, and it just gives you that base to go off of. So it's really, if you remember nothing else from this presentation, practice your stories, practice the interview out loud. That's all I need you to take away. Hopefully a little more, but. So we'll go back to behavioral situation questions. Again, the STAR answer format. These are the best ones for you to practice. So your stories, and just practice setting up the situation, task, action, and results. And if you need to jot down some notes or do some kind of structuring the first few times, that's perfectly fine. And it's great practice, in fact. So these ones, and then again, the tell me about yourself question. I practice the answer to that one as well. It's always important to show up to your interview with some questions for them. Remember, it's a two-way street, and they want to see that you're interested in the job. They don't want to know that you'll just take any job that comes your way, even if that's the truth. They want you to be excited about the job, interested in the company. So always prepare some questions, and it makes you look good. It shows you're prepared as well. So 2 to 3 questions is usually good. Minimum 1 question. If you're running short of time in the interview, maybe 1 is good. If it kind of seems like they're eager to move on, just 1 question is fine, but always ask at least 1 question. Some examples, again, you can look online and there's so much there. I like to ask things like, well, what are the next steps if they haven't told you? Is there another interview round? Will you get back to me by next week? You can ask them things like, what's your favorite part about working here? People tend to like that one because then they get to talk about themselves. What kind of person is successful in this job? That's one of my favorites, because if they say something that you haven't covered, you can take that and explain how you fit that perfect model. So it's personal preference a little bit, but be sure to have questions. Okay, what not to ask? So these are a few examples. You don't want to go into detail about any of these things unless they bring it up. They usually wouldn't. So these questions are more for when you get an actual offer and kind of the negotiating stage. So try and leave these ones out of it. Okay, so what to actually expect in the interview and how to act in the interview. You want to dress professionally, and this is in person. So, top to toes. Some companies are a little more relaxed. See if you can look on their website and look on Glassdoor maybe and get a sense of their culture, but usually a suit is good for an interview. Bring a copy of your resume, bring your cover letter, bring references just in case. Pen and notepad are always good. Be polite with every single person you talk to. You never know who will be interviewing you. No fashion statements. Again, this is getting a little more relaxed these days, but yeah, you want to be generally conservative. So nothing overpowering. You want to arrive 10 to 15 minutes early for an in-person interview. Don't arrive earlier than that. If you get there 30 minutes early, just find a coffee shop nearby and stay there for a little bit. You don't want to be too keen, but 10 to 15 minutes is good. And then you want to monitor your email for changes, just in case anything changes last minute, and your phone, of course. They might give you a call. Okay. Virtual. Of course, you also dress professionally and completely. So I think we've all gotten very comfortable in front of the computer screen and wearing pajamas on the bottom half and professional on the top half. Please don't do that in your interview. You just never know. I heard a story of a friend who's spilled hot coffee on himself in the middle of it, and he had to stand up because it was hot and he was in pajamas. So or you might have to go get up to, answer the door or take your dog out. Just make sure you're completely professionally dressed. Check your background. So as you can see, I've got my blurred background. That's probably the most standard one. It's perfectly acceptable. Just something. Nature landscapes are fine, or a professional office setting is good. Test your technology beforehand. So make sure your Wi-Fi is working, your laptop's working, you've maybe got a backup just in case. If your Wi-Fi is unreliable, maybe find a coffee shop that has better Wi-Fi. So just make sure it's working beforehand. Test it out, see how you look, and just be ready technically. Copy of your resume, notepad, other documents. You can have different windows open on your computer if you have multiple screens, and aim to arrive 5 to 10 minutes early. Just know that you might be in a waiting room, just like you were for this presentation. So in person, in the interview, a few tips here. Again, a lot of you might know this already, so firm handshake, small talk, the weather is always a great topic, or just how's your day going? Eye contact is good. Speak clearly, concisely. Don't be too casual. You can take your time answering questions. Don't rush too much. And don't be negative about your employers. Doesn't matter if you had the most toxic boss in the world. Don't be criticizing anyone in an interview because they don't know you. They don't know the situation. So it will not look good. So try and stay positive. Okay, in a virtual interview, so you'll go into a waiting room, probably. You'll be there by yourself and I bet they will join right on the minute, if not a couple minutes late, depends. Just be ready. So when you join the waiting room and you've got everything set up and you're waiting, don't get distracted and start looking at your phone or close the window and be on the internet. Just be ready because they could pop in at any minute. So be ready to greet them and make that small talk again. You want to minimize disruptions as much as possible. So, you know, the kids, the dog, the construction going on next door, do what you can, try and have a quiet place. But we are all human, so there might be something unavoidable. If it's really disruptive, don't try and just ignore it. You can just acknowledge it. You know, while you're answering, sorry for my dog, he'll be quiet in a moment, or just excuse me, I'm sorry, I just have to go take the dog out. I'll be right back. I'm really sorry. Just acknowledge it. If you ignore it, it's a little odd and distracting for everyone. So it's okay to have disruptions. It happens sometimes. Just deal with it as much as possible. Okay, so most of all, in an interview, smile, be honest, and be yourself, because you will be the one working in this job. You want to present your real self. And interviews, we all know they're a little bit fake. You're trying to impress people, but you still want your true character and personality to come out. They want to know who you are. And just remember, no matter what the outcome, the more interviews you do, the more practice you get, and the better you'll get, the more comfortable you'll get. It's always an opportunity for growth, for learning. You can always ask them for feedback afterwards. So you want to stay positive. You want to keep going your job search. Sometimes it takes a while. It's hard. It's not easy. It's draining. And you've got to keep moving forward, keep trying. If you're really, really stuck, maybe reevaluate, see if there's anything you can change in your job search. Maybe talk to friends or family or someone at Immigrant Services Calgary, a career coach, maybe see if they can give you any insight on tips to improve. So that was a lot. I know, I imagine you might have some questions. I will now give it back to Carlin.
Wow, thank you so much for that presentation, Kate. I really appreciated it, and I think I learned some new things myself. So we're all always trying to learn and improve and better ourselves. We're all in a space of continuous self-improvement. And so I think we're now ready to take some questions. So I know that there are some people out there that do have some questions, so feel free to go ahead and type it out in the chat box. I will definitely read out the questions for you. And if you're brave, you can certainly also choose to unmute your microphone and turn off your camera. Meenakshi, you can now turn off the Facebook Live feature though. That way any questions will remain private. And